What an absolute joke. We're talking about fraud in this committee. In my respectful opinion, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, committed the biggest fraud on this country.
The mighty Ogo met today to continue the discussions related to ArriveCan and the mismanagement of the federal procurement processes. The Liberals tried to pull some procedural shenanigans, but luckily Michael Barrett and Larry Brock were there.
Let's take a look.
Mr. Barrett for 6 minutes, please.
Clara Visser, the government contractor, recently charged for committing $250,000 in fraud under your watch. Can you tell us what the name of her company is and for which projects she worked?
Merci beaucoup pour la question. Donc, je n'ai.
Thank you very much for the question. I do not have that information at my disposal in terms of what the name of the company is or what contracts were used.
So you don't know? No one, none of the witnesses here today know the name of her company or the projects that she worked on.
Donc, Madame Visser a sécurisé plus.
No, she secured various contracts through various prime contractors with various federal government departments and agencies. But the details of those contracts are not information that I have with me today.
Is that information that you'll undertake to provide to the committee in writing?
On peut certainement regarder, oui, dans nos dossiers et voir qu'est-ce qu'on pourrait vous fournir.
Yes, we can look into our files and see what can be provided in this regard.
Okay, so to be very clear, the name of the prime contractors, the name of her company, and the name of the projects that she worked on is the information that we're looking for. And of course, your department will have those records. So you said that you'll see what you're able to provide. Of course, PSPC is able to provide the name of prime subcontractors in the contract that they work on, correct?
Tout à fait. Nous allons regarder dans nos dossiers. Nous allons vous fournir.
Yes, we will provide that information.
It's I must say it's disappointing that you've come to the Government Operations Committee today not equipped with information that's of course in the public interest and of course would be questions that we would ask.
Yeah, I agree. And for those that may not know who Claire Visser is, she was the subject of one of our recent videos, in that the RCMP made an arrest as a result of a investigation that they were undertaking, and she had billed over $250,000 in fraudulent timesheets, and she's like a 60-year-old lady. So
we'll make sure that we stick a link to that video in the description of this video.
Yeah, and I agree with Mr. Barrett. So this was just made public, recently. You're going to come to the OGO committee. The subject being problems within the government procurement process, and you're not going to come with that information.
It doesn't speak to transparency. We've found ourselves, in this place only by virtue of answers being demanded by Conservatives at committee. So. Are you able to tell us how many more cases of fraud, aside from Ms. Visser, have been reported to the RCMP, the number of cases?
Merci pour la question, Monsieur le Président. Donc, tel qu'annoncé.
Thank you for the question. As announced by our minister in March, 3 cases of fraudulent overbilling were referred to the RCMP.
So that includes Ms. Visser?
Merci pour la question, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much for the question. That does not include Ms. Visser. That took place in fiscal year 2022-23, so that was the first case of fraudulent overbilling that we referred to the RCMP. But in 2023-24, we referred 3 further cases to the RCMP, and those are the 3 cases that were announced by the minister in March.
And in addition to Ms. Visser, is there a number greater than 0 of cases that were referred to the RCMP before this spring? Yes or no, please?
Je m'excuse, je vais devoir vous demander de répéter votre question. Je n'ai pas bien compris.
I'm sorry, I will have to ask you to repeat the question.
Other than Ms. Visser's were referred to the RCMP before this year. So there were 3 this year, Ms. Visser in a previous fiscal year. How many others in addition to that? A number?
Aucun autre.
No other case. So the first file referred to the RCMP for fraudulent overbilling was the case of Claire-Hélène Visser. And after that, subsequently, we referred 3 further cases to the RCMP in 2023-24.
4 cases have been referred to so far, just with regard to fraud and overbilling. I wonder if JC Strategies is a part of that, or if that's been referred to under a different category.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know if it was included within that 3.
It'll all depend on the semantics of this, because they no doubt have been investigated by the RCMP under the auspices of a resume fraud or identity theft type of charge. So it's possible that is even in addition to these 4 cases. But it's interesting. It's hard to know if that's a lot or little, but any number greater than 1 is too many.
Any number greater than 0 is too many.
Well,
I mean, you have
that's what I mean, yeah.
These contractors defrauding the government, meaning that they're defrauding the taxpayer.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm a little hoarse.
RCMP contacted PSPC regarding criminal investigations into consultants that were not referred to them by you. So investigations that they initiated on their own or were initiated by complaints from other sources.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la question.
Thank you. To my knowledge, the RCMP has not contacted us in regard to the files you mentioned in your question.
How much money is suspected by your department as being given out to fraudsters or having been the subject of fraud? So you say there's 3 other cases. What's the total value of the suspected fraud?
Merci beaucoup pour la question, Monsieur.
Thank you for the question. It would be very difficult for me to estimate a total sum in regard to this fraud, because the very nature of fraud is to resist detection, to be secretive. Therefore, without looking through the cases one by one, it would be very difficult. I know there are international organizations who say that fraud might represent between 0.5 to 5% of spending in certain government entities, but it would be entirely speculation on my part to try to give you an exact sum.
Which departments are affected by the cases that have been referred to the RCMP?
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la question. Je vous dirais.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I would say that no department is entirely safe from this type of fraud. I think 36 departments.
Sorry, Chair. Okay, I'm looking for the specifics of those departments. You say there's 36. Can you provide the list of the 36 to the committee? And the minister said that the cases were totaled around $5 million. Is that the right number?
Oui, c'est un estimé approximatif qui est très juste.
Yes, that is an approximate estimate.
Right, so 2 minutes ago she said, "Oh, I couldn't put a number on it." Well, the minister said $5 million. Yeah, that sounds right. Answer the question.
It sounds like she was completely unprepared for committee today. I mean, not bringing the information that no doubt was going to be asked, and then not even knowing the answers to some of these questions that she probably should know.
Or she's obfuscating.
One or the other.
I'm sure that there's information to support that. Can you provide that in writing to the committee, the estimate that's been compiled? I mean, initially you said it'd be difficult. The minister found it less difficult. That information was gathered for him by you and your colleagues. So I'd like to get specifics on that. It's about $5 million. You say it's across 36 departments. So I'd like a list of the departments and the estimates that correlate to each department. Are you able to do that for us, please?
Nous allons regarder dans nos dossiers pour voir.
We will consult our files to see what we can do. and we will commit to send on the information as much as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, I'm sure you're aware that this committee has passed a motion. We require any requested responses within a 3-week period. Mr. Jouari, please. The floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good to be back. And I'd like to move that we resume debate on Mr. Green's motion regarding summer meetings.
And
Are
here
you
we go.
serious?
Here we go.
Come on, man.
So, for those that don't know, not many of you probably don't know, in the last meeting before the House rose for the summer, Green did a little carousel between all of the different committees, introducing a motion that was to be voted on to prevent the chair and the rest of the committee from meeting during the summer unless a very, very specific set of criteria was met. And
That's shameful. You know, Canadians deserve answers, and, summer break should not get in the way of that. And I use the term loosely because good MPs are not on summer break. Good MPs are working hard in their communities. And I would imagine that they would be happy to get, an invitation to committee so that they could work for their constituents and all Canadians in that committee. I don't think they would really mind. And if they can't make it to Ottawa during the summer, they can phone it in, right? Like, they can do a virtual meeting that is permitted.
yeah, so you build it into the schedule and off you go.
Yeah, I think it's really just, it seems to me like it's the MPs that don't want to work or are trying to hide something that don't want to be in summer committee.
And I'd like to go on the list for speaking.
Great. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Normally, we'd go right to a vote on this. However, in consultation, I'm ruling such out of order because we already are in the summer. So it's an invalid motion now because we already are in summer.
Well done.
Well played.
That was good. Simple as that. We're already in the summer, so how can you rule on no summer meetings when we're sitting here having summer meetings?
And there was a bit of a cut in there because Mr. McCauley did confer, with the clerk and, make sure that his understanding of the rules were correct, and this, these are the rules. So, so it's an interesting technicality that the Conservatives are trying to use to essentially void the motion, and then that would void the motion of Jouari to actually open debate on this, which would prevent the committee from questioning these witnesses even further.
So a motion, it goes to vote. I'd like to challenge the chair.
Challenging the chair on my ruling it out of order. Now we can go to a vote.
So shall the decision of the chair be sustained? If you vote yes, you vote with the chair.
That's just awful. Like, Mr. McCauley doesn't come up with these rulings just, he doesn't pull them out of a magician's hat. He confers with the clerk and or the Green Book, right? Like, these are rules set by Parliament. He doesn't just make them up.
Yeah, so this is the concerning part, right? The concerning part here is that when the Liberals, now that they have the NDP right under their thumb, when the Liberals don't like things that are not going their way in committee, doesn't matter if they're following the rules or not. They're challenging the chair, and the NDP, they snap their fingers. The NDP, come right to their knee like the good boy they are, and vote with them to overturn the ruling of the chair, despite it being parliamentary procedure and correct.
Like, it's scary because it sets a precedent that if the Liberals don't like something, then they can change the rules that are in the Green Book, essentially.
Well, because a lot of what happens in government can be based on precedent, right? So despite the rules saying one thing, if something happens that contravenes the rules, it can become precedent going forward. So the danger here is that when the Conservatives are in power, what if they don't want to follow the rules? And what if they want to start doing shady stuff? They could just say, well, I challenge the chair.
Well, and it's not like just to say, oh, the Conservatives will do it. It's any government that has a majority. And right now, the Liberals have a majority with the aid of the NDP. So, like, they're just making these rules up as they go. It's ridiculous. And you know what? It doesn't serve the interests of Canadians.
So, it goes without saying, and we won't subject people to the additional time, that it was voted that Macaulay was overruled, and so they went to debate. And this is where, you know, our dynamic duo in the Cape Crusaders are swinging in, Michael Barrett and Larry Brock. Now, Michael Barrett, because you can take as much time as you want to in debate. So Michael Barrett spoke for 40 minutes and Larry Brock spoke for an hour. Unfortunately, they ran out of resources. So they couldn't continue debate, could they?
I think it's great that Mr. Brock, being a former Crown prosecutor, is a very good orator. So he can talk and he can talk and he can talk. So it sounds like it came in handy for this filibuster.
Yeah, he typically runs out of time a lot on all of his questions, just because he likes to set things up with the preamble. So he didn't have that challenge today. So what we did is we broke out a passage that Mr. Barrett was speaking on, and then a very significant portion of what Mr. Brock was talking about, and he uses Trudeau's words against him, and it was really well done.
What a gift to the corrupt that the Liberals are giving them by attempting to stop accountability. Just count. You can picture it. They've got their countdown clock to each break, so that they can each break in parliamentary proceedings. Well, the House isn't sitting upstairs, so there's no way committees could meet. Of course committees can meet. My constituents are well represented if I'm in Ottawa for 4 hours. Does it mean I might need to pack a few more meetings into another day? Absolutely. But when I see them, I don't hear from any of them. You know, you guys have too many committee meetings in Ottawa. It seems like it's getting a little too political down there. You asking for answers about all of that money that's hemorrhaging out of Justin Trudeau's Ottawa. You know what? That's not something that I hear from people.
And it's funny because it's true. Oh, we're getting way too many answers from these committees.
You're working way too hard, Mr. Barrett.
Shut him down. Shut him down.
I hear that they're struggling. I hear that they want change. They want change by this government, and they want a change from this government. They want a new government. But in the meantime, they expect that after the what would have been a devastating loss for the Liberals in Toronto St. Paul's, losing a safe seat in Toronto, that there would see some kind of change in terms of their posture, their approach, that they take Canadians' concerns seriously. So I don't know if you heard, Chair, there was a cabinet shuffle last week. Real change from a government that promised real change.
Real innovator.
A real innovative change.
Yeah.
And just like shuffling chairs on the Titanic, they moved one guy from over there to over there. When one of their ministers decided to flee the sinking ship, they moved another guy who was already in cabinet into that spot. Real change. I don't think they got the message, Canada. Because here we are today talking about fraud, talking about conflicts of interest, talking about waste, scandal, mismanagement. And instead of asking a single question of officials, what's the very first thing the Liberals do? They want to pass a motion to block all meetings in the summer. That tells you everything you need to know. It tells one everything they need to know about a government that after 9 years can't even calculate the waste.
I tell you, I would pay to know what Mr. Brock was saying to those two gentlemen behind him. They all seem to be laughing about something.
I love Barry's like, oh, not sure if you heard, Chair, there was a cabinet shuffle last week. Yeah.
One whole seat.
Groundbreaking cabinet move. McKinnon was moved over. Like, jeez, come on. But this is the thing. It's satirical at this point. And evidently we're not the only ones who sees this as the HMCS Liberal Titanic that is slowly sinking beneath the waves. And you sure did get the message from Toronto St. Paul.
Partway through this open letter to Canadians, the Prime Minister says, "Our country faces many real and immediate challenges, from a struggling middle class to the threat of climate change. If we are to overcome these obstacles, Canadians need to have faith in their government's honesty and willingness to listen." Emphasis mine. That is why we committed to set a higher bar for openness and transparency in Ottawa. Government and its information must be open by default. Simply put, it is time to shine more light on government to make sure it remains focused on the people it was created to serve, you. But in order for you to trust your government, you need a government that will trust you. When we make a mistake, as all governments do, it is important that we acknowledge that mistake and learn from it. We know that you do not expect us to be perfect, but you expect us to work tirelessly and to be honest, open, and sincere in our efforts to serve the public interest.
And I think that's a really good point. I mean, none of us expect our MPs or our leaders to be 100% perfect because they're human. They're human just like us. But when they pretend to be perfect, when they don't admit to their mistakes, and when they don't try to fix things, when Canadians are literally screaming for them to do something, that's when it is impossible to trust them.
Well, and it's interesting. So for those that don't know, this is from an open letter that Justin Trudeau wrote on November 4th, 2015. So it was after he won the election. And, he was trying to start everything off the right way and yada, 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 yada. And you can pretty much tell why Mr. Brock is invoking this letter right now. But the odd thing about government officials is they're essentially the only people that are paid to do a job that you can't fire.
Well, in Canada now anyways.
Yeah, in Canada.
If we had our way, there would be recall legislation put in place. But yeah, I mean, once we elect our MPs, they're there for the rest of that term of Parliament, whether that's a majority for 4 years or whether that's shorter in a minority government. That's why we need to be so careful when we check off that name on the ballot. And that's part of what we're doing here at Northern Perspective, is to give Canadians the information so that you can make an informed decision next time we get to go vote.
Before the election, we also made a commitment to bring new leadership and a new tone to Ottawa. Moving forward, we will pursue our goals and objectives with a renewed sense of collaboration. We fully understand and appreciate that partnerships with provincial, territorial, and municipal governments are vital to deliver the real positive change that we promised you. To close, I am deeply grateful to have this opportunity to serve you and every Canadian across our great country. I am committed to leading an open, honest government that is accountable to Canadians. Repeat, accountable to Canadians. Lives up to the highest ethical standards. Brings our country together and applies the utmost care and prudence in the handling of public funds. Thank you for having faith in me. Thank you for putting your trust in our team. We will not let you down. What an absolute joke. An absolute lie. We're talking about fraud in this committee. In my respectful opinion, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, committed the biggest fraud on this country and Canadians. Everything that I read out in the record, he has done the complete opposite.
Yeah, like there's nothing else to say. Yeah, that Brock is right, 100%.
And it's a shame because I think that a lot of people probably voted for the Liberals, not just for, the legalization of marijuana, but, when you have a government that is managing a country through a terrible time, it's often the case that that government gets associated with being the cause of that terrible time, despite, whether they were responsible for that or not.
Well, and Stephen Harper and the Conservative government kind of helped us through that 2008 housing crash, and it did not affect Canadians the way it affected Americans. Like, we came out relatively unscathed and we got through the recession, and I think things would have been a lot worse if we were under a different government.
Well, and the issue is then you had this guy that was getting noticed just purely on name recognition, Justin Trudeau, and he became the used car salesman. This is where his drama teacher training came in handy. He started painting these wonderful pictures of Canada. You can have everything. Everything can be free. And all we have to do is just spend a little bit of money. And we're investing in Canadians, and we're investing in the economy. And if we do that, the economy it'll take care of itself. It's that easy.
The budget will balance itself.
Yeah.
And it's been 9 years and it hasn't.
So I think a lot of Canadians were duped on it, and a lot of Canadians are embarrassed that they were duped on it. And Canadians, if you were, don't be embarrassed. A lot of people were duped.
Well, and like we say, use it as a learning tool, right? Use it as an opportunity to say, you know what? Maybe I voted just based on his name. Maybe I voted because I just wanted something different. Maybe I voted because I didn't know. I just checked the box on the ballot and I went in uninformed. So make sure that this time around you're informed, that you can get your hands on as much information as you can about the potential candidates in your riding. Join your EDA and volunteer with your preferred candidate. See what they're really like as a person.
Well, and if there's one thing that we've learned, because again, I voted for Trudeau I voted for a Liberal in 2015. But if there's one thing that we've learned is that do not identify yourself based on the party that you voted for. Identify yourself based on how you learn from those experiences. So what I learned from 2015 is that was a mistake, and I'm not going to vote Liberal next time. Because this is, you know, again, a very bizarre behavior where you have these people that are staunch Liberals, and it's just because they've always been a Liberal that's what they always do. So rather than say, you know what, I don't agree with what the Liberals are doing this time, I kind of agree with another party, I'm going to vote for them, they would just rather not vote. That's different than saying all of the parties are terrible and I'm not voting for any of them. That's a different type of choice. So if you can learn from one of these choices that you made, become more informed, and then make a better choice in the future, that's what you should be leaning on.